Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the My UEG Community Programme channel. My name is Jonathan McRae, and I'm delighted to be your moderator for this session, The Recipe for Success, an interview with incoming UEG President Helena Cortez-Pinto from Portugal, where we'll be examining her career, her recipe for success, and her vision for the next 2 years. Looking forward for all of your questions. As usual, please get them in nice and early so we can address as many of them as possible. But Helena, lovely to have you with us this morning.
Good morning, Jonathan. Good morning, everybody that joined us. I'm very happy to be here discussing with you some of my plans for the upcoming presidency in 2022. So thank you for joining.
So this is an exploration, I suppose, in part of what it means to be successful and how we become successful. So we're going to start off asking you to let us know what is your key ingredient for success. You can use the word cloud that is underneath the video for entering your entries into this. So type in your word. What is your one key ingredient for success? We'll come to some of your answers and perhaps explore some of those with Helena in a few minutes' time. Before that, though, Helena, perhaps we might talk a little bit about your career and how you go from a young trainee to this very prestigious position of the first female president of UEG.
Thank you, Jonathan. Well, in fact, it started with the choice of going to medicine because I really wanted a career that was close to people. Then the choice of gastroenterology was because I think that the GI field is a very complete area that has this practical part related to endoscopy, and then it has this more intellectual related issues such as hepatology or IBD. So and it was always a very, very good choice. Then after that, I started also a university career. I started teaching, and teaching was really something that I really enjoyed. I also think there were two important points. Was to go abroad. I went to the Barcelona unit. I went to Johns Hopkins for some fellowships, about 1 month, 6 months, and I think this opened my mind. And I also got the Rising Star from UEG. And it was my first step to enter UEG. And then I joined the committees. I joined the scientific committee. Afterwards, I also joined the PAC committee. I also worked quite near to the European Association for the Study of the Liver, ESO. And so I tried to grab the opportunities when they appeared. But basically, I feel myself as a gastroenterologist, and that's what I really like is my practice. But also there's this will to change something. And I have the impression that being in these kind of organizations really can make the difference and to have the opportunity to change the practice, to change policies. And that's something that I think is very gratifying. Yeah.
Keep your words coming in the word cloud beneath. What is your one key ingredient for success? You know, Helena, we were talking about this last night, some of the UEG faculty, about the importance of traveling abroad, and that younger people sometimes aren't as open to the idea of traveling abroad. It's really quite important to experience your field in different cultures and in different countries and learn from different teams. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I completely think so. It's to have the feeling of, for example, large units that are very well organized, to know how they work, also to network. I think networking is something that's really, really important. Of course, now we have all the social media, but 20 years ago we did not have. So networking was really going to the places, talking to the people. And for example, going to the United States and being in Johns Hopkins, it opened me a lot of doors. I met a lot of people, and that I think really makes a difference. Also, there's a piece of advice that I always give and think is, for example, when you go to a congress, please join the people from other countries. Don't stay with your own country people. Sometimes there's this tendency, it's more easy to speak your own language in a table and not to join the other colleagues. But I think it's so much more interesting to know other people and to discuss. And I think the networking is really something that's important, and people should keep that in mind, even if they are a little bit shy. But then usually you can overcome. Well, it's not my case. I don't feel I'm shy, but I think this can be overcome. Yeah.
I mean, I really think you're right. I think UEG, when people come together, there's a great opportunity, and even virtually, just to make connections with new people. And it's funny. I think, Helena, people want to start those conversations, and as soon as they start them, they're so glad they've had them. But that first step of, saying hello to a stranger is funny. I'm one of those people who forces myself to meet. If I'm having lunch, I sit beside someone I don't know and I say, "Tell me about yourself," and it often leads, one time out of three, it leads to a new opportunity. It really does. It's a great approach to life. I think it's a great advice. So we're asking what your one ingredient for success is. If we can show the results of the word cloud, please. And we see lots of different answers. All of them are joined by one thing, which I'll talk to you about in a second, Helena. But let's talk about some of them. Persistence is something that I know has been important in your career. How important is persistence to success?
Oh, that is very important. I say persistence, resilience. I think mostly when people come from countries where things are rather difficult in general. Research is difficult. Everything you want to get done takes a lot of time. They are always putting you obstacles. It's like an obstacle running. And so if you have to stay there, you say, okay, I did not get it this time. I will get it the next. It will take 3 months to get something that I asked for. Okay, I will wait. So this mixture of persistence and some patience to stand and to wait for things to come, I think that in some situations, and also the feeling that probably most of you often experience, that things are not fair. For several reasons. I'd say that also for being a female in certain circumstances. And also you have to live with that and to cope with that. And you say, okay, this time it is not fair, but the next time. So never give up because you feel that you have been treated unfairly. So I consider that this quality of persistence and resilience is really something that makes a difference. Yeah.
And it's something that many people have been texting in different forms, and never give up, perseverance, persistence, and patience. They're all part of that same umbrella. The other one that really stood out to me was find your people. And I really agree with this. When you find someone who you work really well with, great things can happen. How important is collaboration and identifying that if this person isn't doing what you need, or you're not getting enough from that relationship in a professional manner, to go and find and explore, to meet new people who can do things with you in the way you enjoy.
I think that is very important. of course, most of the times you cannot choose exactly all the people you work with, but you can identify among the people who work with you what are the people with whom you really relate better, with whom you feel this connection, and try to keep them with you. Try to also to, if they are younger people, try to keep them on track. Yeah, I think it's very important, collaboration, and collaboration either in your own workplace, but also in the international milieu. If you identify some people that really share your feelings, share your opinions, you try to keep strong this relation and to develop it. And I found several people, many people during my career that were fundamental and instrumental to me in getting me in, let's say.
Well, I mean, you're obviously referring there to mentors. And Alia Hadefi, thank you very much for your question. What is your definition of a great mentor, Helena?
Well, I think a great mentor is someone that on one side supports you, it gives you the opportunity to grow, and then lets you be independent. So, and sometimes probably this third part is the more difficult. I think it's a little bit like with children. We teach them, and then at a certain point we have to let them go. And to have their own experiences and their own careers and their own life. But I think it's good if they know that they have support and that they will have someone to show them what are the best paths, how you should go. And again, to be patient to these people. I remember sometimes, maybe some years ago, the mentors were more strict and more rigid, so people were more afraid of the mentors. Now I think usually the atmospheres are more relaxed, so there's not this. It's also like fathers and children, parents.
Yeah. I think men are slowly getting better, is what you're saying, but without saying it, Helena. There's this great quote from Herbert Bayard Swope, which is, I can't give you the formula for success, but I can give you the formula for failure. And it is to try to please everybody. And in this word cloud, there was lots of positivity, but it is important sometimes to know how to say no. And this is what I want. And as a woman, I'm wondering, is that sometimes a little bit more difficult? And what your advice would be in terms of that track of success, in terms of when you need to say something that isn't going to be popular?
Well, you just to have to be strong. If you really consider something is not right, you don't like it the way it goes. I think that women in general have a different way of saying no. Probably they are not so, let's say, so strong in the way of being very rigid, but they can say no very consistently. So I think the issue is to be consistent. If you are not happy the way things are going, you have to change it. And I completely agree that it's very important not to try to please everybody. And there may be this tendency, this trend, or this, because it's easier to please everybody. But I agree, you should not do that, because then in the long run, people will understand. Eventually will understand that it was for the better this way, and not just to go with
my family is a family of people pleasers, and sometimes it's to their own detriment. So I think it is really important to understand that sometimes you can't please all of the people all of the time. I want to go to your vision for UEG, but as we have an interactive session, I do want to just ask one more question, which is, as a woman, did you have more difficulties to reach your goals? I know it's something you'll be talking about in a bit.
Well, it's difficult to say exactly. I think I had in some ways. I think, for example, the area of endoscopy and the techniques. It's still, and it was 20 or 30 years ago, even more, a male area. And I often heard this expression, oh, well, for a woman, you can do colonoscopy or quite well. So this kind of comments that people may think are funny, but are not funny at all.
Yeah.
So I think mostly in the endoscopy area, in the endoscopic and the techniques area, there was, and I think there still is, some issues with female and some decreased or reduced opportunities. But Jonathan, let me just, before passing to my plans and regarding the words, I think that you also need to have some passion in what you do. And I would not like to go without saying that. I think you need to enjoy what you do. Because if you don't really enjoy what you do, it's very difficult. Of course, probably it's not possible that everybody enjoys what they are doing, but to have some passion and enthusiasm is really something that's also very important. And another thing, it's the hard work. That is probably in all careers. And you, Jonathan, I know you know it very well. You are also a very hardworking person, and you have to prepare for everything you do. And so, okay, you can have persistence, you can have passion, but mostly you have to work. You have to work a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right about loving what you do, because not only does it make the job easier, but also that passion and enthusiasm that you have for your work infects other people around you. I mean, in the same way as a smile is contagious. You smile in a room and it's hard not to smile back. That enthusiasm that you bring to a room when you are and I always think of this one researcher I know, Helena. Her name is Sarah Vero, and she is a soil expert in Ireland. And her expertise is soil, the dirt on the ground. But when you hear this woman speak, the passion she has for all of the different factors that affect plant growth, and the different types and textures and strata of soil. You'd think this would be a boring subject, but she is so passionate. She just infects you with her enthusiasm. So it is really important to find that passion for your work. So let's talk about your plans then for UEG as the elect president. First, let's talk about my UEG community. We're on the program channel after all. What is the plans, and tell me a little bit about this UEG associate concept.
Well, it is in fact my aim to reinforce this unifying identity concept of my UEG, while at the same time to increase the interaction among the different sister societies. Because I think that this concept of belonging is something that's very important for many of the people that were already joining UEG during the UEG week or during all year round. But now this can be clearly defined and registered as associate or young GI associate with the related benefits. And this feeling of belonging, I think it's something that may be very important. Of course, they can belong to their sister society, for example, EASL, and then be an associate in UEG. But there are also some people that are related with digestive disease, but do not belong to any society. And they will be, I think they will be happy, and it will benefit them to be an associate of my UEG. But this doesn't mean that that we are not envisaging to reinforce the umbrella concept. On the opposite, so the idea of associates and being associates means also that there will be more projects that join the people from the different societies.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of work alongside that with the Young GI programs and so on.
Yeah, I think that the young people have always been very much cherished by UEG, and they retribute by cherishing UEG. And this is something that we intend to develop. Now we also have a very young chair for the educational committee, Henrietta, yes. And I think this will help a lot to further develop a lot of initiatives for the young people. I think there's really a young spirit in UEG, and we are counting on them to register. And this will be something that more for the end of the year will be presented. But during my 2 weeks of presidency, I really intend to further reinforce it and develop it. Yeah.
Another point that I know is very close to your heart is diversity and equality, and it is great that this evening on the TV studio channel we will be passing the baton from 3 men to 3 women in UEG leadership, and that's a great recognition of the importance that UEG has had on raising the profile of female researchers and really doing a great job of acting rather than just talking. Tell me a little bit about your plans for diversity and equality over the next 2 years.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, in fact, I'm planning to work on that. Because I think that although there is this sense that the gender gap of opportunities in digestive disease health is diminishing, that is not always the case. It's not just because we will have a president as a woman. So the conviction that the trend for improvement, that there's always a trend for improvement is not real. And there is still a lot to do. We have a fantastic equality and diversity task force that has been led by Dina Tiniakos from Greece, and she has been doing a very valuable work. And in fact, this issue has been one of our mission and core values. But I still think that, for example, we need to do frequent assessments of what is happening in the different European countries regarding either diversity or gender equality, either in hospitals or universities. Because it is interesting that you may have the idea, okay, this is now getting even. But then if you look at the numbers exactly and you realize that, for example, among full professors in my university, there are 4 females and there are 25 males. But you see a lot of females, so if you don't count them and you don't really look at it attentively, this may not work. So my idea is that we should further disseminate some policy statements on best practices in this regard to the different centers and to the different universities. For example, in ESOL, we also have a UEG, we already have a UEG statement, but I think that so far we have not so much disseminated it. And one of the problems that is more dear to my heart is the discussion about the professional family reconciliation in what regards women. And of course, we can have legislative measures to achieve it. However, these legislative measures are never enough, because most of the change is also in the mentalities, and that is something that cannot be really legislated. But I think there are some measures that can be very supportive. If you want, I can give you some examples. For example, compulsory paternity leaves, where men finally get used to taking care of the children in ideally equal time, but at least in an important time. Other things, for example, when you consider age eligibility for some prize or for some position, you should take in account the years of maternity leave. or paternity leave for this case, of course. This is also happening now in the European Commission, which is given about 18 months per child. I also think that although I'm not a big fan of quota, of establishing real numbers, I think you have to have them in your mind. And for example, when you think about the speakers, the faculty for a meeting, you should have, in fact, a percentage, a minimum percentage for females and males. And then, of course, there are, for example, development of programs to support participation of young parents in the congresses. It is sometimes something very, very difficult. If you are breastfeeding a child, you can leave several bottles of your milk, but it's not practical. So it would be good to have places for breastfeeding, to have it. I know some examples, for example, in Australia, where young females that have young children have some money support for childcare when they are on call. So there are so many initiatives that can be done, but I'm sure I will work with for our task that has been doing a fantastic job. And in a way, I think it is. The fact that we are now several females in this position was also much of their effort and of their job.
Yeah, and those policies have a big effect, I think, sometimes, because if they come down from UEG, women in these positions can say, look, this is what the guidelines are, and it's hard then to argue against that if there is a situation where there's opportunities being missed or inequality. So I think those policies are really important and really support a lot of what you said. I wanted to get to the policy related topics because I know we're really focusing now in UEG on really raising the profile of digestive disease. So maybe you might tell me a little bit about what your plans are for policy over the next 2 years.
Well, I think that we should increase and facilitate the access of our associates to the EU funding. And this could be done through several ways. It can be done through administrative support of the applications and specific grants. In fact, this was already in our program for the last years, but I think we should work more on that, of facilitating, because, for example, for countries where there is not a research in place and there are not strong groups, sometimes it is very difficult to apply for one of these large EU funds because they are very complicated. They are a very, very heavy administrative burden. And so I think UEG could help, even if then they would reimburse some of the money when it is when the people get it. So, of course, it is also important to lobby in the EU for further inclusion of digestive health research topics. But for the moment, there is very important topics such as nutrition and cancer as priorities in EU, so we can take advantage of that. And I think that there should be more connection between PAC, the Public Affairs Committee, and the research community and the research committees to create this kind of connection. Because the other thing that I really would like to be able to develop was the creation of large consortiums that would result in large databases. I know this is very difficult. There are a lot of obstacles, but this could be a way that putting people together in the umbrella way and also to be more competitive in terms of EU funding. And we have several examples. For example, EASL has been working on that, and there are several consortiums. And we can create similar consortiums, or we can join some of their consortiums. Because there are areas, I'd say, for example, the area of the cholangiocarcinoma, where they have this European network. But we could join with our expertise in surgery, in imageology, in endoscopy. So I think there's a lot of roles for amplifying and fostering the association of groups from different specialties in these large consortiums.
Yeah, and I think that there's also a real trend of interest within the public and the media on nutrition and health, not just obesity, but the sort of food that we're making and and how we're eating it. And so it's a really great time, I think, to seize that opportunity, because if you have the people and the media involved, and it's an easier media story than sometimes other stuff, to get the momentum to raise the profile and get more EU funding. I think that's it's a really good time for you to be thinking about that. There's also an aim to start increasing those who are I suppose, GI specialists, nurses, pharmacy doctors, allied health professionals. Tell me a little bit about your plans for that, please.
Well, we have been increasingly, these people have been increasingly important in the digestive health. One of the examples is, in fact, the nutritionists, but also the nurses, and also pharmacy-related doctors, all the people from biology and basic areas. And I really look forward to having them among our associates, that they would be able to benefit from our initiatives, but also for us to benefit from their expertise. And I really would like to make them feel welcome, and of course to create specific pathways for them and specific conditions where they feel welcome. And I really look forward to that.
Yeah,
and I think there's always that trend. There's been happening, and I think it will happen more in the following years.
And you talked about that importance of being part of something and inclusion, and I think that it's probably something that some of these nurses and pharmacy doctors would very much welcome. Just going to your questions, you can give us your questions. We're speaking live to Professor Helena Cortez-Pinto, the incoming UEG president. If you have questions regarding her career, success, or her vision for the next 2 years, we'd love to hear from you. We were talking a little bit about diversity, and this is a very valid point that one of our contributors has asked. You know, when we talk about diversity and inclusion, usually we're speaking about gender, but of course that doesn't really represent diversity at all. It is, I suppose, a more difficult thing in some ways to provide great guidance and very inclusive policies for all genders, all races, all creeds, and religions.
Yeah, it may be more difficult. The gender issue is more obvious, and it's
binary. Yeah.
More, the other issues of diversity and of inclusion can be a little bit more difficult. But in this concept of inclusion, I would also think about including these people that are not so well known, that come from countries like, for example, the Eastern countries or countries outside Europe. That is something that we do not yet have a very concrete policy, but I would really like to have a stronger relation with health GI professionals from Africa, for example, where they do not have a very strong society, so they could benefit from our help. We already have some discounted, some prices different from countries with lower economic income. So I think that's one of the ways to try to be more inclusive, to include people from different areas, from different races, of course. So on a way to be open to, and try in a way to make them come and to be present in our UEG initiatives. I really would like to do that, but we will have to work on the way exactly how to do it. For the moment, we have some initiatives, but we really need to work more on it.
Yeah, and visibility, of course, is an important part of that. Having representation on the program when that's possible. It's always something to try and work towards. But also, I suppose, thinking about those local or cultural differences and finding a way to bridge them across. Sometimes it might be a language thing, or sometimes it might be a time of day thing. So trying to find ways to do that. There's definitely things to think about for sure. The last area that I wanted to talk to you in terms of your vision is education and educational programs, and sort of creating a uniform educational program when it comes to GI health. Can you talk to us a little bit about your plans for that?
Well, I really think that we should look forward from a stronger uniformization of the educational programs of digestive health in Europe. I think we should have a closer collaboration with the European section and board of the gastroenterology and hepatology, and increase the dissemination of the European specialty examination in GI, the ESEGH. This has been done. This is already done, but of course each country has its own policies. Of course we cannot oblige each country to say, okay, now we have this exam, this is the exam. So we have to work more close with them. We already have a very important tool, that is the Blue Book. The Blue Book is translated in 4 languages and it defines the curriculum in gastroenterology at the European level. And it's being updated. In fact, the last one was from 2017. So now it's the time to update it, to make a new one. But it's difficult because there are different practices in different countries between what is private, what is public, in what is the time that is available for the interns to learn. It's not something that, for example, if a center wants to mostly earn money to have the time to teach the young interns. So, but regarding concretely this exam, I'm sure we are going to have a stronger collaboration and try to make it more uniform among all Europe. In fact, this kind of uniformity is not only for education. Ideally, it would also be regarding several policies. For example, screening of colon cancer. Ideally, this should be uniform among Europe. And one of this,
No, you're right. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but of course, the more uniform you get the education, you get the diagnosis, the easier we can identify patterns for better treatments and so on. That quality of data just improves if there's a standard best practice that everybody's using.
Yeah, because what I was thinking is that, in fact, coming a little bit back to the policy-related topics in relation to the policies, it would be good if we use our national member societies to disseminate some policy statements. Let's say we think that screening for colon cancer should be like that, and like that, and we reach an agreement, and then we try to disseminate it through our national member society. But this is not only, through several different areas, for example, the alcohol-related policies or the food-related policies. And frequently we have in each country someone that has very good connections in policy and could be a focal point to disseminate the policies that we think are the best.
But absolutely, and the effective then, even just of creating the policies means, much like in Ireland, we often hear journalists quizzing ministers of health over WHO policy. If UEG has a policy on how we should be screening, it gives someone a piece of paper to say, this is what we should be doing and we're not doing it. Why aren't we doing it? And so there's a two-way effect of creating those policies, that both the doctors and the public can demand them because they can see what best practices looks like, and then also you influence the policymakers as they try and disseminate those policies down throughout the country. So I think it's really, really valuable. Yeah.
Yeah, we have another important tool for that. That's the white book. I think you have discussed that yesterday. So if we have data to present to the policymakers, that's something that can make a difference. For example, it is also very dear to my heart, the minimum unit pricing policy for alcohol that has been being implemented in UK. And it's very difficult to convince certain member states, but if we have good data to demonstrate the mortality of certain diseases like alcohol-related liver disease, we can make a much better case for lobbying.
Andrea says, I think, coming back to inclusivity and diversity, I think it's important to create spaces for people to meet and connect over ideas. It makes us overcome preconceptions and actually appreciate the diversity. There's no question. As someone who's had the fortune to travel the world, meeting people, hearing their stories. I was a talk show radio presenter for many years, Helena, and all of the preconceptions that I had were just shattered by the people I spoke to on the phone about their daily lives, about their problems, about their situations, and it made me ultra liberal and ultra empathetic. And I think you're absolutely right, Andrea. Creating places where people can meet and connect, like UEG, virtual or the real events, is really important. Would you agree?
Yeah, I completely agree. It is the possibility of people to connect and to talk makes a great difference in the perspective and in the way they see the problems and they find the solutions. So I think that again, networking is and it's interesting, this sad experience of the pandemic and our virtual way of connecting, although it's but in a way sometimes we are able to get together a good number of people and to connect. But ideally, we hope to connect personally and physically.
We have one final question from Alia, and I think it's a perfect way to end the session. And it's about advice you might have for those watching this session. If you have the possibility to advise the youngest version of yourself several years ago, what would you have done differently based on the experience that you've got? And what other advice do you have for young GI medics?
Thank you for this question. Well, if I come back, what I think I should have done would be to be more focused. I think there's, when we are younger, we think we have a lot of time. Time is, and that we can do that and that and that. And I think it's better to be focused and to say, okay, this is my area. This is something that I'm going to follow. And also to think that you have to start very early. For example, if you look for a career in the university, sometimes, for example, for a GI, okay, first he did the internship, then he started to do the specialty, and then finally when he realizes he's already 40, because time is very, very fast. So be focused and think that time flies, and that you have very early to think of, and also another thing that I think it's important is to have other things besides professional life, to have a life. I think if you count too much on your profession, that may also not be good. Well, I was happy to have a family and to be able to reconcile both. But if possible, I think people should try to have both and to dedicate themselves. Try to be balanced and to also have a life besides only the profession.
As Ferris Bueller said, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop to take a look once in a while, you might pass you by. And I think as we've seen, time flies because it is the time to end to our session. I've really enjoyed this chat with our new president, Helena Cortez-Pinto. Lots of exciting things to come in the next 2 years as you guide UEG. Thank you so much for your time, for watching, and Helena, thank you so much for your time.
If I can say just a last word, I'd be very happy to have suggestions from all of you. I will. I'm very, very open to all the suggestions you may have. I'm very excited about taking this position. I have ideas, as you have seen, but probably you will have even better ideas. So please forward your ideas either through the UEG Secretariat, or I can also post my email, and I will be very, very happy to hear from you and to know what you think and what your suggestions are. And also thank you, Jonathan, for this entertaining conversation.
That's a really good sign for what the next 2 years might look like, Helena. Thanks very much for that. An open door for you to seek to suggest what you would like from UEG to Helena. A great way to end the session. Helena, thanks very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, everybody, for being here.